Alright. I was meant to do a covers video on Saturday, but I have really gotten back into sleeping. I love sleeping. It is the best part of the day. It is when my brain finally shuts up and stops reminding me of everything being terrible. I bring the covers videos up because I've never thought of it as such before fully glaring at it for this review. We have a good cover here. Before now, I just thought of this as a passable cover of Iron Man fighting Captain Cold. But there is one little detail I had never really clocked before in casual reading. And that is Iron Man's zigzagging trajectory. It gives a little bit of character and story to what prior had just been considered a passable cover of Iron Man fighting Captain Cold. We looked at part 1 a week ago, so here is the conclusion to our first Captain Cold story. After this, Iron Man fights Captain Cold a lot more, but almost never as a solo threat. He's always in a team or partnered with others. Captain Cold has invaded Iron Man Industries and supposedly has killed Iron Man by freezing him. If you are a novice bad guy like Captain Cold and you think you have murdered a superhero because you have frozen them, do yourself a favour and just smash it. Like in Terminator 2, hasta la vista, baby. Make sure they're dead is what I'm saying. Before Iron Man obviously escapes, we get Captain Cold's backstory. And I spent last issue talking about my Captain Cold, which is the one from Thunderbells. And I specifically never mentioned, and I avoided mentioning that version of Captain Cold and this one, they are not the same guy. My mindset is, this is the first appearance of Captain Cold, regardless. If the first Iron Man story, if in that someone else wore the Iron Man armour, if Robert Downton Abbey Jr. made the armour and had Yinsen wear it, you would still count it as the first Iron Man story. Well, I consider this the first Captain Cold appearance because it is the first appearance of Captain Cold. And other than his backstory, I can squint and pretend it is the one that comes after this one dies in a Spider-Man annual. That's the problem with Iron Man baddies. With the exception of Casper and a Kurt Busiek-less Madam Mask, all his villains are legacies. There are 19 red rockets for fuck's sake. There are great Iron Man bad guys. Captain Cold, I would consider one, but they are diminished by the character being irrelevant and the name and costume and powers changing from person to person. I am obviously biased on the Captain Cold front. The other one, the main one in my opinion, he is a much richer and interesting character than the original. The original has the rinse and repeat formula of most Iron Man bad guys, where they are an ex-employee of Iron Man Industries. And that is another issue with Iron Man bad guys. That is almost the only personal connection most of them have to Iron Man. That is why Casper and Madame Mask, the only ones without 10 different people wearing their names, they are his two best opponents. Casper, he does hate Iron Man Industries, but his shtick is that he pretty much hates any corporation. And Madame Mask, who we see a lot of in this run, and it is this run where she really stands out as a character. Her personal connection isn't that she has any animosity towards Iron Man Industries, but instead that she and Iron Man had an intense relationship that fell to the wayside. Those two have much more unique and powerful motivations than one of the Captain Colds having worked for Iron Man and gotten fired. Part of me wonders if the reason that nobody has introduced a new Casper or a new Madame Mask is because they have those superior characterizations and backstories, whereas Captain Cold's great power set and identity, but the backstory of him being a bitter ex-employee is shared with so many others. We get to our big final battle with Iron Man and Captain Cold. There isn't that much more to the story than the fighting. It is very meat and potatoes. But Bill Bungalow did always write decent enough fight issues. We also have a letters page. We have a letter from Peter Sandlord, who goes on today the Andy books with Marky Mark J. And more impressive, we have a letter from someone with the name Jack Frost. You could argue that I am missing the point with Iron Man and his bad guys, and that Iron Man's enemy is the technology, not the person behind the technology. So it doesn't matter that there are 4 Captain Colds or 3 Unicrons, but to that, I say this is a comic created by Stan Lee. That level of thought was never put into it. Iron Man is fighting bad guys like any other Marvel superhero is fighting bad guys. Captain Cold, his next appearance is actually in Spider-Man Team Up. Captain Cold joins forces with Elektra to fight Spider-Man and Daredevil. I think I have that issue. I definitely remember reading it years and years ago. Here is Spider-Man with his Twinkies. I think Captain Cold didn't like Twinkies, so that is why his next appearance is ganning up against Spider-Man. But the offer of delicious hostess products distracted Captain Cold long enough for Iron Man to defeat him. After this, Bill Bungalow's next issue isn't for another half a year, with issue 95. Gary Conman became editor-in-chief, and so he was the one writing Iron Man for a few issues. That is Iron Man 87, and a look at why I think Iron Man's Rogues Gallery, while appearing to be not shit, is actually shit when you start getting into it. There really doesn't need to be 5 whiplashes or several spy masters. This story introduced a bad guy like that, but I don't think it was ever Bill Bungalow's intention that this guy would pave the way for several other Captain Colds, including the one featured in New Thunderballs. I'll give it a 7 thumbs up.